न्यूरो फीडबैक अभी मार्केट में अभी आया नहीं है. पीपल डोंट बिलीव दैट इट्स गोइंग टू वर्क बिकॉज देयर इज नो साइंटिफिक एविडेंस.
स्टूडेंट या कोई भी जो पर्सन है वो चाहता है कि शॉर्ट रील देख के मतलब वो सोचता है कि एक मूवी देखूंगा उसमें 1000 रील निपटा दूंगा. इज इट अफेक्टिंग देयर माइंड्स लाइक फोकस टाइम?
Reels in Instagram, they now given the slider. Now people can't even watch 30-second reel. Now they have the seek bar. They can tap on the seek bar and they can go to the end. हमारा ऐसे जो ब्रेन है ना वो बहुत ही लिमिटेड है इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी.
So, welcome to another exciting episode of the Pavel Live India podcast. I'm your host Priya Rathod, and we are having a very special guest with us, Abhinav sir. इन्होंने बीसीआई के फील्ड में बहुत ज़्यादा काम किया है और अभी भी कर रहे हैं. सो वेलकम सर.
थैंक
एंड
यू.
मैं जानना चाहूँगी जी मैं आपकी जर्नी के बारे में जानना चाहूँगी कि आप इस फील्ड में कैसे आए और आप अभी इसमें क्या काम कर रहे हैं. आपकी एकेडमिक जर्नी कैसे रही. तो मैं जानना चाहूंगी इन सब चीजों के बारे में आपसे.
Definitely. So I'll start with my background. So when like it's not like it was my dream to come to this domain. It just happened. Um, like as I met people, I learned from people, and there were people who supported me in this domain. So eventually I got into. So it was not my childhood dream, but when like after completing my bachelor's, I went for my master's in IIT Bombay. There I got into interaction design department, and most of the people who got into interaction design, they were interested in designing mobile apps, web apps, but I was not. I was more into physical computing because I was coming from engineering background, and I've been working on robotics and different kind of things I used to make there. That knowledge I took it in my masters, and try to build physical computing, or you would say interactive installations, all this kind of stuff I used to make. But then I actually met a senior, like this senior was working on a game where you can do few basic interactions using EEG sensors. um, he asked me for a help. He asked me to help with developing the application, and I can tell you like you can go about this in then later on in this conversation. Like I how got into the programming because I was not interested in programming at all. It was like really tedious task for me. Like I had zero interest in programming, by the way. But when I went there, I saw the hardware. I was interested in the project. I tried to help him out. So I learned a language called processing. Okay, it's a Java-based language. It's a wrapper on the Java. So I tried to start the programming in that language. But I programmed a couple of application back in when I was doing my bachelor's with Nitin. But I was never interested in programming. But when I started working on this project in masters, I got into programming, and eventually I helped him out. And one day I asked him to let me use that sensor for a week. Okay, because his project was over, he has nothing to do with the sensor. In that one week, I tried to explore the hardware as much as I can. I learned the documentation, I learned the SDK, I learned what we can do with that hardware. Eventually, I explored everything, and then my guide, Professor Ravi Puvaya from IDC, I went to him and I asked him, can I do my second project under him? He said, yes, definitely. And, I proposed him the idea and he was so happy with it. And eventually I got into that domain from that particular project. And started building a lot of ideas, how to use the BCI hardware, which is already available in the market, instead of building everything from the scratch. Okay. And after the completion of the project, my guide was really happy that he wanted me to write a research paper on it. But like I was young, like I did not think about writing a paper. I was just making things. I was just a maker. You can say
Practical
that.
guy basically.
Practical guy, hands-on guy, that kind of person. Okay. So I just left it out. I did not write a paper on it. But then I had another senior who came to IDC, but he joined as a PhD student. And this guy was senior to me in my bachelor's. Okay. And he actually joined PhD under my guide. So we were working in the same guide, okay, and he had the similar kind, not exactly, but similar kind of a problem statement that we were trying to solve at that moment. So my guide asked him to take my product, take my project, and expand that and implement that in his research and write a paper on it. So he wrote a paper. I was a co-author in that. So he wrote the paper. I never took the opportunity to write the paper at all. Um, so after that, that was the end of the thing, like, and that's it. After that, we had a master's thesis where I worked on another project where like I try to explore physical space where people can not people kids can play remotely with each other in a physical some kind of physical game, not video games. Okay, so
Okay.
that
Basically,
was the
can you
idea.
elaborate this part? So, like, two kids can play together. They're
Yes,
but
a physical
they're not
game.
together.
Yes, yeah, they're not together. They have to. So the problem statement was, how would you connect two kids from two
Okay.
different regions to
Mm-hmm.
make them play together
Okay. Okay.
in a physical activity, not like video games or
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Okay.
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 At that moment, I was interested, and hence I got the opportunity to go to NTU Singapore, and there I had few guides there, like under which I developed this entire product.
Mm.
So there were two ideas I suggested. One was like there will be robots, in each and every location. One, the robot in this location would represent the location, the kid in other location, and vice versa, and they will basically mimic the motion of the kids in the other location. So you can basically, build your games on top of it, such as, if you want to play chase game, you can chase the robot, and the robot in the other location will follow your body movements and do the same. So that was my first idea. And then like there were a lot of, games I built on top of it. And then second was a drawing application. If you think about, creating a drawing application is nothing new actually. You can do that very easily. You can just take a mouse cursor and go and draw on the canvas, and you can collaborate on the canvas, right? But what I brought it in this thing is I created a canvas where you can paint with any color that you can think of, or
Mm.
any color that you like in your environment. If you like your shirt color, you can paint with that. If you like the color of the toy sitting on your table, you can use the color of the toy and paint on the wall. How would you do that? Basically, the kids, I designed the entire interaction where kids can go to that object, touch it, and that color will virtually get picked up in their hand, and then they can draw on it on the canvas. So the interaction was to pick the color from the real world objects.
Okay. Okay. Got
So I built the entire thing. And when I was doing the second project, I actually refined my programming and all, and after that, I basically, after graduating, I joined a startup called Bravo Lucy in Hyderabad and worked there for like 6 months. And again, they asked me to, work on web application, mobile application. I really hated it. I did not like it at all. So I left it in 3 months actually, but 3 months, plus 3 months, basically the notice period. So I spent 6 months there in Hyderabad and then moved out from there and joined another startup called Grid Ants. And later on, they renamed it to Qubit. And these guys, the founder of those startups were from IIT Gandhinagar, and they were like really intelligent guys I had to work with. They gave me the opportunity to build everything from the scratch. Again, I was building the same mobile application, web-based application, but the thought process that I brought in that company was, how do you identify the problem? Okay, learn about your users, learn about their challenges, learn about their problems, and then build the solution. Okay, just because you know a programming language, you should not go ahead and start building application just randomly and try to sell it. Okay, nobody's gonna buy because you're not solving any problem. Nobody's going to buy a solution, right?
it.
So that startup actually gave an opportunity to explore more myself in terms of programming, design, everything. And like I worked there for 1.5 years, and then I did my another startup with another guy from MIT Media Lab.
Mm.
His name is Andrew Sharma, and he's also in Bangalore. I worked with him, so we were actually trying to make ink out of pollution. So we'll capture the carbon from the air and will convert them into an ink. So we basically built that. We got a contract from Tiger Beers in Hong Kong, and we built. So they wanted to run a campaign around pollution, basically. We basically built the ink from pollution, and we got first contract from Tiger Beers in Hong Kong. And there, so the Tiger Beers had an idea to promote the pollution of problem using the ink. So they invited a lot of artists, painters from like all over the world, and to Hong Kong, and they used our ink to create paintings, posters, banners, just using our ink. And they put it everywhere in the city just to promote like how Tiger Bears is participating in reducing the pollution. So after that, like that venture was not a kind of startup. Basically, we build a innovation labs, like yours only, and there we were building different kind of products in house, and our model was to license out those ideas to different startups, those who wants to use that. So while working on that, like we build a device which basically helps you to collect your biosignals, especially especially your heart rates and all those things, not EEG. So we after that, like while working in that startup, me and the other guy, we try to, we thought like we'll take this hardware with a little bit of modification, we'll come up with our own cheap version of BP machine, and we actually split it out from that, and we started Wealthy. And there we built the first version of our hardware along with the software and algorithms. So this hardware was like the cost of that entire BP machine was like 200 rupees only. Okay, and it used your mobile phone power to do all kind of processing, show the data, record the data, and all those things. So we built everything from the scratch. Again, like in India, usually hardware startups are not getting funded, because investors are not interested in hardware startups. They are mostly interested in service-based or software startups. So hence, like it was very difficult to raise funds around that. Okay. And like we were about to close that one, and I met someone, like someone actually approached me through my GitHub, asking me to, use the brain machine interaction project that I did during my master's, and he wanted to use that product. So he asked me, can he license my the solution? I told him yes, he can, and he wanted to do the monetary exchange against that idea. But I told him, why don't we build together this thing and take this solution ahead and build everything from the scratch, refined it, because during masters the code was like really janky, the SDK was not open, we had to write a lot of things our own, so basically I modified everything when we did build that thing together. So that startup called Neuro, and I ran that startup for 8 years, and that was my first legit like VCI startup that I did. We were trying to solve the problem for pepper allergic patients, ALS patients, or stroke patients, those who are actually logged in their body. They cannot move, they cannot speak, they cannot blink, all of those things. So they have no way to communicate with their loved ones and all. So that was the problem actually. So we tried to solve that problem, and I built everything from the scratch except the hardware. We just did some modification on existing hardware, but besides that, from software end, I did everything from the scratch. So that that was the phase where I actually refined my programming skills, a little bit of hardware skills also. But again, like the entire solution was to help those logged in patients. So this was my first BCI thing, BCI product. And there I built actually 5 kinds of products. 2 were based on the tablet and 2 were based on the mobile, and they had different set of combinations of hardware. So we built something called fusion algorithm, so which was fusing data from different kind of sensors such as EOG, EEG, and EMG. Um, when we were doing the testing, we dropped couple of sensors. Basically, EMG is something which was useless for us because these patients cannot move at all. Hence, those signals were totally useless for us. But EOG and EEG is something that we used in our product, and we made the product such a way that you can select the modality that you want to use in the application. If you want to use the combination of those two sensors or just want to use one sensor or the other sensor, it's up to you. And it depends on the level, severity of your illness that the patient has. Okay, so based on that, so we basically connected with a lot of we raised a lot of government funds from Canada. First of all, Canadian government is very supportive. They gave us like a lot of funds. We collaborated with the University of Waterloo. We built the software. We built the hardware, and eventually, and we were going through. We were planning to go through the clinical trials, but again, when we were at the stage where we raised the fund from the government to do the clinical trials, COVID hit, and we had to, close everything down. But we were like low key for 2 years. But again, like 2 years, after 2 years, we were burned out our funds, surviving those 2 years somehow. But we became the part of, like a lot of accelerator programs such as IndieBio, which is one of the like largest biotech startup in the entire world. And it comes under the SOSV and Hacks accelerator. You might know this. It's a hardware accelerator program. They too, both of them come under the SOSV, and they are at the level of Y Combinator. Y Combinator usually supports all kind of service based, product based startup, but IndieBio is only biotech start accelerator program.
बायो कम्युनिटर्स का सर बहुत सारे रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस बहुत सारे हैं उनके, मतलब they must
Right.
students research based startups I think.
Right. So there are like a lot of challenges. Oh, okay. I mean, see, again, there are challenges for the all kind of accelerator programs. If they are known accelerator programs, then there will be challenges in their applications and all. But in our case, our product was innovative. The solutions that we were providing was quite, new. So we did not apply for that accelerator program. They approached us. Okay. And there were only few Canadian companies, those who got selected in that program. And like once you went there, like we raised funds and we ran it for for another 4 years. But like after COVID, like I plan to escape. I plan to left, not escape. I plan to left that startup because I realized that breaking into the medical domain, making a solution that is going to be applicable in medical domain is very tedious task, and it's a long-term task, and it's not it's not an easy path. For only reason there is a lot of regulations. So in US you have to go through FDA. In Canada you have to go through medical approval. But the only challenge is in Canada you have region-based medical approval. So if you are moving from, let's say, if you're moving from Uttar Pradesh to Madhya Pradesh, you'll have to reapply for those kind of approvals. Whereas in Canada, you apply for once and it is applicable everywhere. But the problem with US is FDA is not easy. They're not easy way to approve anything. They don't easily approve these kind of solutions. So you have to have clinical trials, and hence we raise a lot of funds to do the clinical trials. But that did not happen. So when I moved back to India, I met another, friend from IIT Bombay, and he asked me to let's take your ideas, build it, but for the consumer side. I said yes, why not? So we actually thought of neurofeedback in the beginning, and we also got selected in NRCL IIM Bangalore, and that's another incubation program. I won't call it accelerator program because they don't give you funds and all, and it's just an incubation program where they refine your pitch, they refine your product, they refine your direction, they help you out with this kind of stuff. But it was really helpful. When we started, we had the idea of we'll go into the neurofeedback, but while we were into the program, we got to know that Apple has launched their Apple Vision Pro, and the light bulb moment came up. Like we knew that after this all Chinese manufacturers, they are going to make knockoff of that Apple Vision Pro with not that kind of finesse or sophistication what Apple has. So they would launch something, but it will just work. It will not be as good as in Apple Vision Pro because they would not have that kind of sensors built in, hardware built in. So I thought of like, why don't we, fill that gap with our EG headsets where they can basically control things in AR, VR. Um, and we also don't want to make the EG headset that is like which you see, in nowadays in medical settings, which has a lot of wires hanging out. You have to wear a cap. It requires a lot of gel. A lot of preparation basically it requires. So I don't want all of those things. I just want something which you can wear as like a pair of headsets, earphones. You just plug it on and you good with. You can just get started. You can just start using the device right away. You just have to pair it with Bluetooth and that's it. So we came up with Aware Sense, where we thought of building ear-based EEG sensors. We chose EEG sensor in earphone based form factor because there is a reason, like when like I come from a design background, so we actually do a lot of user study where we try to understand um, like user needs and user problems. Like when do they accept a solution and when they don't, when they reject a solution. So remember, like you might remember that when Google Glasses came up, they failed, like miserably. The reason was it's not that those glasses were bad. It just they were too intrusive, like just imagine you wearing a camera on your forehead and talking to me and recording me 24/7 without my consent. That was worrisome. Okay. So people rejected that idea right away. Okay. So similarly, I don't want these kind of sensors to be intrusive where you wear something on your head and people can see you, and you look weird wearing those bulky headsets. So I don't want those things. I decided to go with the form factor, which makes people, accept that hardware like any other pair of headphones. They don't need to think about that this is something special. It has extra bit of features that helps you to track your brain activities, helps you to control your VR devices, helps you to control your mobile phones and all. So this was my entire journey. It's a long journey, but this is all it, till
It's a
the
very
aware
long,
sense.
yeah, it's a very long journey, sir. Correct.
Yeah,
But it's really inspiring journey because it's not a common field. Like BCI is not common field that you have entered. So I think you're feeling that sometimes you tell someone, "Yeah, I'm working on BCI." So what is this BCI? You may obviously feel
yes,
this. So
definitely.
like you just introduced one term, neurofeedback system. So basically, can you in simple words can you explain what is neurofeedback system? मतलब इसमें होता क्या है, कैसे मतलब काम करता है ये, थोड़ा सा एक शॉर्ट में अगर आप बताएंगे थोड़ा सा
Definitely.
क्या होता है इसके बारे में?
Definitely. Definitely. So think it that way. What is feedback? Feedback is something that you do something and you get some reaction against that system or against that activity. Okay. So if I'm saying something and you are saying, no, this is bad, this is called feedback. Okay. This is as simple as term, like
Okay.
तो feedback क्या है इसमें basically neuro feedback क्या है in this one like whenever you are doing something talking, looking at something, watching, moving your hands, anything that you do basically observing something, or just looking it into infinity, even that moment you are doing something in your brain. Okay. And there is no way to know like what you're doing in your brain. Okay. So there is a way to record your brain activities, either using there are like various imaging techniques such as fMRI, MRI, those kind of things. But the simplest one is EEG. Okay, where you put a couple of electrodes on your head and you can measure the potential difference between two different locations and how much activity is happening in your brain. Okay. And that is just the raw data, it's nothing beyond that. You have to understand that data. Okay. So what happens basically, brain has different kind of patterns. There are different kind of pattern emerges when you do something. So there is something called oscillations, neural oscillations. So these neural oscillations are nothing but a set of brain waves. Okay. something called alpha, beta, gamma, delta. These are the 4, 5 kinds of brain waves that emerges when you do something. Okay.
Okay.
And especially these emerges when you do some activities related with reading, learning, watching. Your frontal lobe gets activated, and those activities actually majorly happen in frontal lobe. Okay.
Okay.
What is neurofeedback in this? Again, still feedback is not there yet. Okay. You can measure, you can tell the brain activities, these are the brain activities. But what is the feedback? The feedback is when you take those brain oscillations and you combine them in a certain way. Probably it could be the summation of those, waves, or there could be some ratio of those brain waves. So you would see an pattern emerging. So when I built the algorithm, like for detecting the focus, I did the same thing. I basically take those, brain waves, and actually through hit and trial, doing some experiments, I figure out a pattern, a solution, a combination of those waves where it measures your focus, visual focus. Okay, and it's not. So there are different kind of focuses, but I'm majorly talking about the visual focus. Okay, so when you are looking at something and you're trying to focus on something, that algorithm will actually show you your brainwaves that focus is going up. As soon as you look away, it drops right away. You can see that in the screen.
Okay.
That wave changing, showing you that your brain is responding to your visual stimuli is actually feedback. Your graph is showing that your focus is changing. That is neurofeedback. Okay.
सो बेसिकली जैसे आपने बताया कि न्यूरल फीडबैक सिस्टम इस तरह से काम कर रहा है जिसमें कि आपके ब्रेन, जैसे मान लीजिए फोकस हटा, सो आई कैन सी दैट मेरा फोकस हट गया है, या मैं कुछ और जो मुझे सोचना चाहिए था, एक मेरे पास स्पेसिफिक टारगेट था, उससे मैं हटा, तो आई कैन इजिली गेट दैट कि मैं हट गया उस पॉइंट से। तो इस तरह जैसे कि जो आपके ईयरफोन्स आप बना रहे हैं, प्लान कर रहे हैं, क्या हम एल्गोरिथम ऐसा डिजाइन कर सकते हैं जैसे मान लीजिए कोई स्टूडेंट है आपके ईयरफोन्स यूज करके एक वीडियो देख रहा है या पढ़ाई कर रहा है, कोई लेक्चर देख रहा है, तो कहाँ पे उसका फोकस हाई था, कहाँ पे लो था, कहाँ पे उसको अंडरस्टैंडिंग ज्यादा रही होगी, कहाँ पे कम रही होगी, कैन वी गेट दैट आल्सो? उसके बारे में हम कर सकते हैं?
Yes, definitely. Like it's the one of the thing that I did, when we were trying to detect different kind of set of features. You can definitely do that. You can always plot those graphs or those data against some visual stimuli, and hence then only you can make comparison. Like otherwise there is no way to know like what you're trying to actually learn from that thing, okay, from that experiment. तो अगर कोई वीडियो देख रहा है, उसकी ब्रेन एक्टिविटीज चेंज हो रही हैं, कितनी चेंज हो रही हैं, कहाँ पर चेंज हो रही हैं, और क्या क्या होता है कि कभी कभी तुम्हारा फोकस लूज होता है ना, तो you see that, okay, you see that right away that okay, you just got bored, okay, and hence you lost your focus. Or something that there are like not just the focus, you can also take other mental states such as stressed or anxious, anxiety. You can also take those, okay, and you can also look at the feedback, neurofeedback, and say that कि अच्छा शायद ना यूजर को यहाँ पर मेंटल एफर्ट थोड़ा ज्यादा लग रहा है इस चीज को समझने में। तो एक और मेंटल स्टेट है मेंटल एफर्ट। ओके, फोकस एंड मेंटल एफर्ट टुगेदर यू कैन कंबाइन इट टुगेदर, यू नो दैट कि कहाँ पर यूजर ने फोकस लूज किया और कहाँ पर उसको बहुत एफर्ट लग रहा है एक पर्टिकुलर कॉन्सेप्ट को समझने में। Then what you can do basically, you can take that part of the video or suggest someone who had made that video कि उस पार्ट के डिफरेंट वेरिएशंस बनाओ, ठीक है, और डिफरेंट वेरिएशंस बनाओ ताकि जो यूजर्स है ना उनको समझ में आ, जब अगर उनको ये पार्ट अगर इस वेरिएशन में नहीं समझ में आता, दे कैन स्विच टू अदर वेरिएशन, वेरिएशन ऑफ एक्सप्लेनेशन, एंड इफ दैट नॉट वर्क देन दे गो टू अनदर वन। तो क्या है ना कि फीडबैक से यू कैन एक्चुअली चेंज कि वीडियो में एक्चुअली कंटेंट कैसे प्रेजेंट करना चाहिए।
बेसिकली एक ऑप्टिमाइज्ड लर्निंग को हम फोकस कर सकते हैं कि ऑप्टिमाइज वे में लर्निंग।
एग्जैक्टली। तो एक वो पार्ट है, तो ये मेजरली यूज होता है न्यूरो मार्केटिंग में। एक्चुअली देयर इज अनदर टर्म कॉल्ड न्यूरो मार्केटिंग वेयर we learn about like when the person is interested in some product or not. Okay, so let's say someone is watching an advertisement. So we take two types of data. One is their EEG data, another one is their gaze data. So gaze data helps us to understand where they are looking at on the screen in that entire video. Okay, are they focusing on the person who is showcasing the product, or they are focusing on the product, or they are not interested at all in the product. कि वो कुछ भी देख रहे हैं, शायद पीछे स्विमिंग पूल है उसको देख रहे हैं, या फिर कहीं झाड़ी हिल रही है उसको देख रहे हैं, या कार को देख रहे हैं, बट प्रोडक्ट को नहीं देख रहे हैं जो एडवर्टाइजमेंट शो कर रहे हैं। तो विद दैट गेज डेटा यू कैन लुक एट देयर गेज डेटा कि वो किस पे फोकस कर रहे हैं. But with mental state, you know that if they are actually paying attention, because you can look at on any part of the screen, but you might not be paying attention, right? So that happens. So अगर दोनों data है, then you can tell like for surety that the student is not paying attention to something, or the person is not paying to the attention to the advertisement. So you can definitely do that. This is totally possible, and it's been done in a lot of things, in a lot of domain.
Got it, sir.
Yes, sir. So if we are talking about the neurofeedback system, so इसे जनरल पब्लिक यूज कर रही है क्या? एंड इफ दे आर यूजिंग, सो उन्हें क्या सेफ्टी मेजर्स लेना चाहिए इसके लिए?
राइट. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, न्यूरो फीडबैक अभी मार्केट में अभी आया नहीं है, लाइक नॉट फॉर द जनरल पब्लिक, फॉर वेरी सिंपल रीजन, people don't believe that it's going to work. Okay. Because there is no scientific evidence. Okay. People still, I mean, there is scientific evidence, but people still don't believe that it's going to work. Okay. So when you go to US, a lot of people are diagnosed with ADHD. Okay. And they are mostly opt for medication, not for the neurofeedback therapy. Okay. They always opt for the medication, and medication is easy because it's been proven. A lot of people have been, like, it's been marketed so much in the US that people opt for medication, but they don't opt for neurofeedback therapy. So like, if we can build, if we can prove clinically that actually, neurofeedback is working for a particular sector, we don't have to, capture all the domain, but if we can prove that it's working for learning, okay, then it's a gold mine, like we can definitely achieve that. Okay. So in China में क्या हो रहा है कि schools actually ये सब sensors को लेकर बच्चों के ऊपर actually test कर रहे हैं. They have also not, generalized it in all the school, but again they are taking a step ahead. They are also implementing those sensors in lower grades school classes where they are making students wear those sensors, and taking the maths class, English class, or language classes, whatever, and they're trying to understand which student is lacking the focus and all. I mean, I don't know whether it's ethically correct or not. There is ethical concern also, but again, like, this is another thing. But it is available, but people are not accepting it as an alternative to medication.
Now my next question is from you, like अभी फिलहाल ये तो अभी स्टार्ट भी ठीक से नहीं हुआ है, न्यूरोफीडबैक सिस्टम या कोई भी सिस्टम स्टार्ट भी ठीक से नहीं हुआ है, तो क्या चैलेंजेस रहेंगे? जैसे मान लीजिए हम इसको सेल्फ स्टडी में इन्वॉल्व करना चाहें, तो क्या क्या चैलेंजेस हमको फेस करने पड़ेंगे, क्या क्या एथिकल कंसिडरेशंस हमको लेने पड़ेंगे? थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में बताइए ना सर. लाइक क्या चैलेंजेस हमको मेनली लेना, मतलब चैलेंजेस आने वाले हैं फ्यूचर में, तो डेटा का प्रॉब्लम आ सकता है, मे बी शायद इसके बाद में एडेप्टेबिलिटी का प्रॉब्लम आ सकता है.
Definitely. That's another thing, adaptability, usability, those things are going to be there. Ethically, we are not still there. I'll tell you why, because there are a lot of people actually, since the beginning of Neuralink, there are organizations coming up to help you out with the ethical concern with the BCI, like how an organization is going to use your data. Okay. As an organization, I can capture your data. You are wearing, let's say, I sold you my Easy headset, and you are wearing those headsets, and I think that you might be wearing those headsets and watching, video tutorials, but you might be watching reels, and I'm also getting that data, and I can, as you mentioned that, we correlate the data with the video. I can do that also here. I can correlate the mental state with the reels data, and I can tell the other company, third party, see, this guy is interested in these kind of reel, why don't you feed him more this kind of stuff? So selling the brain data is, see, right till now so far, we were using some correlated data, where we are guessing what this user would like, as a video.
We are guessing, but then we will confirm.
Yes, now we are actually we know if we capture the brain data, then we definitely know that this person is lacking this. If there is no ambiguity at all. Okay. So that's the ethical concern, how the organization is going to use the data.
ये चीज सर एक चीज और हेल्प करेगा। ऐसे मान लीजिए मैं हूँ, मुझे नहीं पता है अपने बारे में कि मेरा फ्यूचर क्या प्लान है, मेरा मुझे किस सेक्टर में जाना चाहिए, मुझे क्या क्या सेक्टर में मेरा ज्यादा इंटरेस्ट है, तो आई थिंक इट विल हेल्प इन दिस सेक्टर आल्सो ना, इन पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट, देयर आर लॉट
Definitely,
ऑफ पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट ऑफ
definitely.
दिस।
Yes, every technology has
या
it's
वो तो
double sword basically.
एग्जैक्टली
Okay,
पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव दोनों
ठीक
है।
है ना, तो it doesn't,
हाँ
like how you are going to use it, it totally up to you.
अप टू
See,
यू,
for
करेक्ट।
me it was introducing the sensor to fill the gap between the cheap airwear headset and the Apple Vision Pro kind of headset. For you, it's bringing the education, learning, making learning better. But there are going to be people who are going to use these kind of headsets for gaming, eventually. Okay,
अगर सर हम बात
so
करें
yeah.
फिलहाल एक कॉस्टिंग की, तो एक ईयरफोन डेवलप करने में लगभग कितना कॉस्ट तक आ सकता है हमको, अगर हम लोग डेवलप करना स्टार्ट करते हैं तो?
See, again, this is something, it's all, it might take up to 50,000 per headset, okay, to develop the prototype. Let's not go into the mass manufacturing. If you go to mass manufacturing, it might come down to 30,000 or 25,000, about that range. If you go to the internet and if you look for Neurosity, Neurable, or Anton, these hardware actually in about the similar range. They are not expensive. Because see, when I look at these EG sensors, I don't look at them as earphones. I look at them as EG sensors. So users are going to pay for the EG sensor, not for the earphones. Of course, earphones are coming as audio, capabilities coming as the secondary option, but this is not the primary feature. The primary feature is I'm helping you out with controlling the device. Okay, where audio features are just going to help you to listen to things, listen to music, and so on, basically. Yeah.
सो लाइक एज यू आर बीसीआई एक्सपर्ट, जो आपको ब्रेन का काफी अच्छा नॉलेज है, सो एक सिंपल क्वेश्चन है मेरा, लाइक आजकल क्या हो रहा है ना, वी आर वाचिंग दैट शॉर्ट्स रील्स एंड शॉर्ट वीडियोस आर मोर वायरल, लाइक उन पे व्यूज ज्यादा आ रहे हैं। कोई भी स्टूडेंट या कोई भी
Correct.
जो पर्सन है वो चाहता है कि शॉर्ट्स रील देख के, मतलब वो सोचता है कि एक मूवी देखूंगा उसमें 1000 रील निपटा दूंगा। सो
Correct.
इज इट अफेक्टिंग देयर माइंड्स, लाइक फोकस टाइम?
Yes, it
इज इट
is.
हार्मफुल फॉर देयर
It is
माइंड?
actually, yes, reels are really actually bad because it's, see, हमारा ऐसे जो ब्रेन है ना, वो बहुत ही लिमिटेड है इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी यूज करने में। हमारा जो ब्रेन जो है ना, बहुत ही कम पावर पे काम करता है। ठीक है, वो उसका जो पावर रिक्वायरमेंट है वो हमारे लैपटॉप्स का, कंप्यूटर्स का प्रॉब्ली 1/100 होगा एक्चुअली, इतना कम पावर यूज करता है।
ओके।
तो उसको जो पावर जो ब्रेन को चाहिए ना, उसको मैनेज करना होता है कि किस एक्टिविटी के लिए कितना पावर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करे। देयर इज एक्चुअली लॉ कॉल्ड कंजर्वेशन ऑफ एनर्जी इन न्यूरो साइंस, नॉट जस्ट इन फिजिक्स. So there is actually law called conservation of energy, where brain actually try to conserve the energy for the activity that you are trying to do right now. So if you're trying to talk, the entire energy of the brain is actually trying to feed those set of neurons to make me talk. I probably can do some other things, but this is the main task that I'm trying to do. Okay, so when you watch reel, like you are trying to focus on something. Okay, so your brain is basically, it's really bad at focusing things. That's another thing. Okay, and when you, like, we don't have like good focus at all. Like our brains are always distracting because there is a lot of thoughts popping up in our mind every second, and we get distracted pretty easily, and the reels are not helping much. Okay, and they are like building a bad habit of consuming the content in shortest form. Okay, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Before it was what, yeah, so before it was 40-second reel, but now they shrink it down to 30-second reel because people cannot even consume 40-second reel. See, this is how bad it is right now. Okay, and if you look at the reels in Instagram, they now given the slider. Now people can't even watch 30-second reel. Now they have the seek bar. They can tap on the seek bar and they can go to the end. They don't have to wait for the 30-second. Okay, so
Yes.
this how bad it is. Okay, so you think about, like, actually reels are bad for the, especially for students. Students should avoid watching reels. This is not good for them at all.
Okay, so sir, as you have already heard about the Babel Live India, so it
Yeah,
is our initiative, and we are focusing on the self-learning, okay, self-study. It is our
yeah,
self-learning ecosystem. So what your thoughts about it, and आप क्या सोचते हैं इसके बारे में? And हमारा ये इनिशिएटिव है, इसमें अगर हम बात करें बीसीआई की, तो इसमें हम कैसे से इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं सेल्फ स्टडी के लिए?
Correct. See, neurofeedback, we can definitely use that, but neurofeedback alone is not going to help these users, students especially, because they need to have behavioral changes also. They need to change their behavior. So neurofeedback is going to provide the data. See, look at my data. This is my mental state. But what are you going to do with that? So we should actually come up with some kind of thing, that will fill the gap to take that neurofeedback data and translate into user behavior changes. If that doesn't happen, it's not going to work. So it's really important that those two things go hand in hand.
Okay, got it, sir. So basically, sir, कुछ suggestions आप जो हमारे viewers हैं उनको दे सकते हैं, like how do they improve their self study and like क्या उनको methods use करने चाहिए self study के लिए, learning के लिए, तो आज के time पे.
Definitely. So I see, for me, as I mentioned, in the beginning, that I will talk about this part in the later of the video, where how I got into programming. I was not interested in programming at all. You can ask, Nitin said that, I was not into at all. But what got me into programming is the curiosity, and my interest. When I got interested in programming, after, I started making with very simple applications, like doing very simple things. Okay. Similarly, students don't need to focus on like big concept. They can, consume or digest the small concepts and then combine those small concepts and, consume the bigger concepts. Okay. Similarly, like when I did the programming, first I used to make, small shapes, animations and all those things, but eventually I got into gaming. I made some games, full-fledged games. You can find it online. It's everywhere. But like when I started making full-fledged games, I had to basically program from end to end, like I had to learn everything, how to do, system software design and everything basically. So that came from my self-interest. Okay. And that self-interest only built up when I started consuming programming in small bites. Okay. Similarly, students can also, consume everything in small bites instead of, taking full bite.
Okay. In the form of reels.
Yes, in the form of reels.
Okay. Okay, so sir, आज आपसे लगभग हमारा सबसे longest podcast रहा है आज का अभी तक का हमारा, I think 50 minutes का. So thank you so much, sir, for coming, and I think we will be like working on together regarding BCI involvement in self study and machine learning models, so that we can suggest student best for them, because right now there are only one solution for every problem of students कि हार्ड वर्क करो, मेहनत करो. They don't know कि कैसे मेहनत करें, कहाँ मेहनत करें. नहीं आ रहा है रिजल्ट, मेहनत करो. नहीं आ रहा है और मेहनत करो. So they are not trying to find out the basic main problem. So हमारा टारगेट वही है कि हम बेसिक मेन प्रॉब्लम्स फाइंड आउट करके फिर उसको उस अकॉर्डिंग गाइड करेंगे कि स्टूडेंट किस तरह का है, बिकॉज एवरी स्टूडेंट इज इंडिविजुअली डिफरेंट स्टूडेंट. सबका अपना लर्निंग बिहेवियर डिफरेंट है, सबका अपना स्टडी बिहेवियर डिफरेंट है, सबको अपना अपना अप्रोच डिफरेंट है. सो वी आर ट्राइंग टू गो इन दैट मार्केट एंड वी आर ट्राइंग दिस. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर सपोर्टिंग अस, एंड we are expecting that when on the 10th of December we are launching our first prototype of app on 10th of November, because उस दिन हमारा वर्ल्ड्स ह्यूमन राइट्स डे भी है. तो वो हम बेसिकली हमारा थीम ये है कि हम एजुकेशन सबको देना चाहते हैं, like everyone is eligible for every kind of education without regardless of any kind of financial problems. So because self study में फाइनेंस बहुत कम हो जाता है, एंड राइट नाउ मार्केट ऐसा है कि सब कुछ आपको ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल है ही. तो ये हमारे विजन से हमने स्टार्ट किया है विजन को, और वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग सपोर्ट फ्रॉम यू एंड लाइक अदर पीपल्स, सो दैट वी कैन फास्टर एंड मेक चेंजेस ऑफ एजुकेशन सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया. सो थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर जॉइनिंग अस. थैंक यू सर.
Thank you inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much sir for joining us. Yeah.